Yes. One of these books took 42 years to write, so I think you'll forgive us, I hope, that we are, well, God, loads of time late.
Back to normal com time.
No, I'm not having that. Well, traditionally on the Friday evening we have book launches, and it is Halloween, so there's a witchy theme, which is why we're wearing witchy hats. Other people are wearing witchy hats.
Which hats?
Those hats.
Which witch hats?
With 3 books. I was going to start off with my own, and then go to Tracy's book, and then to JR's book. That's how I was put it. So, as you know, last year I launched Jack Jaw's Choice, which is the first part of Daughters of the Grain trilogy, and I am launching Prose Law, which is part 2. I thought I'd go straight into the reading. If we were, where's Sam? Hello. There we are. Come on, give me that script. Oh, thank you very much. Male voice.
Right.
Blue male voice.
Typecast.
Grey, do you mind being grey male voice? Grey male voice. And would you be, Dawn, which one do you want to be?
Is he doing this one?
Yeah.
Green, yellow, another one, isn't there? 3 women in there.
There's the other. Yes, right.
Should I be green and orange then? Thinking the green and the orange. No, hang on, we want. I don't know what colours are what for dark.
I'll get Dawn and Tracy to stand next to each other. And
to see what happens.
There'll be a sort of struggle as to who's going to do what voice. Does that make sense?
Who's doing the yellow one then?
You?
Right. Okay.
Stand next to you.
Yeah,
So the person wearing the yellow hat is not playing the yellow part. Okay.
no, it's not very colours.
That's
It's
too
got
easy.
points.
Which colour is grey?
Oh, there it is.
It's the one between the light and the dark.
I used to do these big theatrical productions, of which James was in, he went model. Yes. The seven of them. And they will have 50 people in the cast and crew, we did rehearsals. How the mighty have fallen. Do you want to kick off?
No, because I'm still trying to work out which we're going to do what, so we're not talking to
Brilliant! So, you stand up to Sam. That'll make me sense.
Yellow one. It's okay, that's what we
Who's the narrator? I'm the narrator. I can't. I'm done up the first line.
They're just figuring that out.
Oh, wait.
Sorry, Shakespeare on Zoom during COVID.
What's going on now? Right, so book 1 is finished. This is the start of book 2.
Rise, Mara. For there's work to do.
There was always work. Fields to hoe, iron anvils to carry, men to save. Mara sat bolt upright, her eyes wide, as she tried to latch onto what little light squeezed into her tent.
It is the way of the world. You must accept it. You should become a true daughter of Igraine.
Mara would never accept this constant babble of the witches in her head. The voices of these wise women, these daughters of Igraine, that the witch Melkina had gifted her, cursed her. These harpies drew her astray. She wished them silent. Mara slipped out of her bed. In the corner of the army tent, covered in blankets, lay Oberus the hobgoblin. This wretched creature had vowed revenge against the chief knotmaster, so he was a traitor to his kind. Now he had a place at the men's war council. Oberus had saved Mara's life. She had saved his. They were bound together. His gills fluttered in a resonating snore. The embers of the fire still glowed, casting some heat. The hobgoblin had to stay warm or it would die. Mara shivered and clutched her cloak. Outside the camp, lay quiet. Without knowing why, Mara walked away from her tent, wanting to be alone despite the crowd inside her mind. She should guard the hobgoblin. Even with the prince's protection, there would still be soldiers wanting to kill him. But she needed solitude. Away from the camp, her footsteps led her to a clutch of trees. She'd have to turn back. To the southwest, a smudge of light heralded a new day, but within the woodland it was pitch black. Except a light flitted between the trees. Mara went forward. The light paused.
It's only me,
Mara whispered.
Mara, the wise woman.
She crept on and found the light hovered all by itself. Another brightness flickered through the trees and joined them. And a third. Fireflies? They were too constant, too big to be insects. About the size of a fist. Hard to tell as they were on the far side of the clearing. And their light shone on the flowers growing in the grass and heather. She had seen lights in the woods, imagined it.
They are fae.
Are they, Dealer?
Yes.
How beautiful.
Dealer. Mara had heard that voice sounding in her head once before. The total had become 4. Melkina, the old woman who had decanted all of this into Mara's mind as she died. Ursa, who had stolen Melkina as a child. Rowena with the red hair, who had escaped the witch hunts. And now Dealer, who knew of Fae. How many more? They talked to each other in her mind, sometimes about it rain, for they were the daughters of the High Priestess. As Mara was now. A witch who murdered grandmothers and stole children in their beds.
Wise woman.
Another voice in her head, another daughter of rain, but this was the glowing light, nudging closer as it floated on the breeze.
Are you a wise woman?
Yes, I'm young for a wise woman.
All men are young to us.
I'm a woman.
A wise woman. Yes. I was a woman once.
The Fae came so close that Mara could have reached out and touched it. She could feel its warmth upon her cheek, and its fire held Mara's gaze. A voice, neither male nor female, came like honey into her mind.
Did you steal from us?
No, I've never seen a fae before.
That you hold others within yourself?
Yes, the wise woman before me put them there.
Then you know our secret.
I don't know the secret.
The truth you stole from us.
A branch snapped, loud in the hush of the trees. The Fae were gone, flitting away. Another light cast its brilliance with fiery, tar-stinking fumes curling upward on a branch of wood. Mara ducked behind a tree.
We're far enough.
Yes, I think so.
Mara recognised the second voice, Master Trout.
I thought I saw a light.
Don't be so suspicious.
That's very safe.
Trout sounded nervous, so unlike his usual haughty self. Mara could pick out his silhouette, tall and thin. The other man seemed stocky in comparison, but he was most likely only average build.
You know it exists.
Sir, Prince Toad is so curious with secrets. These questions give him away.
He asked about it.
Properties, yes. How do we help on that?
Do we know if it works?
No, we'd have to...
Kill an elven.
Mara stepped the stake. I heard something.
Don't be so nervous. No one has followed us.
We were here already.
Quiet, Melkina.
Don't tell me to be quiet.
The voices of the previous wise woman only sounded in Mara's head, but in the quiet of the wood and the easy earshot of the two men, they deafened like squalling children.
They can't hear us.
Well, Trout,
No, I won't. I have Lord Ganton's trust. I'm the princess. I won't betray my duty.
Lord Ganton's trust.
Why is that funny?
Come on, coward. We better go back before we're missed.
They crashed away through the bushes, and Mara risked shifting her weight. But even when it was quiet again, she held back. They were gone, but there was a lot of open ground between the trees in the camp. If she followed them now, they only had to glance back to see her. An animal cried out. sodden and sharp. Mara held her breath. Deer, wolf, something else. There were stories, so many stories told around campfires by those visiting weavers of yarns. Mara took them all with a pinch of salt. She had made up some herself to amuse her friends and knew those weren't real. But fae were. She had seen them. So if fae existed, what else? And some of the beasts in stories had teeth and claws. When she thought it was safe, she retraced her steps, careful now that the darkness came up to her knees on the ground with all its treachery. Mara stumbled. Something lay across the path. She bent down, felt the warmth of her body, wet with morning dew it seemed. When she raised her hand again, she smelt the iron tang of blood. Trout was dead, knifed in the back. So that's one story with a witch in it. The Crow's Law. Tracy, another story with a witch in it.
Okay. Devon's Forgotten Witches, 1860 to 1910. There are lots of stories of witches in this book, and they're all very different to the one you just heard. Let me give you an example. These have all been collected and investigated and reconstructed from numerous different news reports in the British Newspaper Archive. Read you a short bit called Lost and Found. Under the deeply sarcastic headline, Enlightened Bideford, we find a warning to all thieves and rogues that the town is no place for them. For there is a mysterious power of detection far surpassing anything Scotland Yard could ever hope to produce. That was in the Western Morning News on the 29th of July, 1874. Continuing in the same derisive tone throughout, the reporter tells the story of a working man who lost his silver watch. After a fruitless search, he offered a reward of £2 to anyone who discovered and returned it. But when this also failed, his wife, described probably quite correctly as his better half, suggested a potential means of recovering the lost watch. With the fertility of resource peculiar to her sex, she suggested consulting a local white witch. Her husband was not especially keen on the idea, so the wife said she would go herself, and listed some of the white witch's successes as a means of convincing her husband. He had cured Mary Sawney's pigs, which had been witched, she said. Old Scriggins, who had been bent to double by witch, was cured and able to stand almost straight again. He would certainly, asserted the wife, be able to tell who had the lost watch. Convinced, her husband agreed, and the following day the wife went to consult the white witch. The white witch listened to the story of the lost watch and told the wife that the watch could definitely be recovered, and for an extra £5 he could show her the likeness of the woman who had it. The wife agreed to pay the £5, and the white witch began his working, which the article describes as some mysterious performances. He told his client to stare through something with one eye. Sadly, there is no indication of what. It seems that a dim, shadowy figure appeared, and the wife claimed that she could recognize its features. The white witch removed the instrument through which the wife had been looking and instructed her to go home and tell her husband to whistle through the keyhole of their door for an hour, while she stirred a kettle over the fire, muttering some incantation the white witch had given her. Within 24 hours, the white witch said, the watch would be recovered. The wife returned home and relayed this information to her husband, who, perhaps unsurprisingly, was rather reluctant to spend an hour whistling into a keyhole. However, after some persuasion, he relented, and the two of them carried out the instructions they had been given. They passed a somewhat restless night, and the following morning the husband went off to work as normal. While he was gone, a strange mason boy came to the door asking for a pennyworth of apples. The wife escorted the lad into the garden, and there, under the apple tree, she discovered the silver watch in an old pocket. Presumably, her husband had left a jacket outside. A similar occurrence took place in St Blaise in Cornwall a few years previously, when a respectable farmer lost a purse with a significant sum of money. Having conducted a thorough search, he concluded that one of his farmhands must have taken it, and suspicion fell upon one man in particular. The man's protestations of innocence did not convince the farmer's wife, however, and she went to consult the local white witch. The historical record is full of cases in which a victim, suspecting someone or of harming or otherwise working against them, receives confirmation of their suspicions from the white witch they consult. In this case, the white witch provided the farmer's wife with a description which was very similar to that of the farmhand she suspected. The poor man was immediately held to be the guilty party, and yet the money remained undiscovered for several days, until the farmer had occasion to unlock his wardrobe, where he was astonished to discover his missing purse in the pocket in which he had left it. One can only begin to imagine how uncomfortable the poor farmhand's work days were prior to that discovery.
How long did it take you to research?
How long were we researching this one for? About 6 months?
Yes.
7 months?
Round about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically like doing a jigsaw puzzle where you don't know how many pieces there are meant to be, you're not sure how many pieces you have, and there is no picture.
It's an interesting period. People do go on a lot about the sort of witches in rather before that, but 1860 to 1910 is disturbingly contemporary.
That's the thing that I get asked about the most, because when we sort of first mooted the idea for this book and started looking into how much was actually in the British newspaper archive, it's absolutely staggering. What has anybody here ever used the British newspaper archive? They use a scanning software to digitise all the news sheets, and you put your search terms in, and what you get back is either, if you read it out loud, you would probably summon something. It looks like runes, so you have to go into each individual record to make sure it's, this is a story about a witch, and not gold witches which tell the time beautifully, which there were quite a few of. So once I've weeded all of those out, if anybody knows where I can get a gold witch that tells the time, I would quite like one. But yeah, it's basically a big jigsaw puzzle of finding the cases and then looking through all the other newspapers to see what other instances of reports there are to build the picture of what actually happened. But yes, it is surprisingly late. There was a lot of material.
Should we go to the next book, or are we going to carry on?
No.
No, you can ask if you have any questions.
Do chip in with questions if you have such before we move on to the next book, as it were. Or by any.
Your story mentioned a male white witch. Was that particularly common? Because I've heard of cunning men.
Yeah.
In English folklore.
Yeah, there were lots of white witches throughout Devon. There was one called Snow at Tiverton. There was the Tuckets from Exeter. The one in Barnstable didn't actually have, didn't ever get named. There were a lot. And quite often the white witch was, the white witch certainly in Exeter was a position, and it was held by a succession of men until, when did the woman take over? She was at the early 1900s.
Right at the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah. So yeah, that was quite.
Well, which was originally gender neutral.
Yes. It was part of the sex.
I'm not Jewish, thank you.
Johnny had one.
Oh.
Well, I'm not sure this is very good. Because you get that sort of this is like presumably like a traditional witchcraft tradition that follow through. Then you have like more modern neo-paganism, dating from, I don't know, 30s, 40s. Is there evidence of like a link between the two? Are there traditions that, like, you know, these people use extra and stuff, did they continue unbroken into modern day neo-paganism, or is there a break? Or
one thing everybody needs to know, when I do my talks about this subject, I have a slide in my PowerPoint which just says, not a witch, because that gets rid of all the questions about covenants and stuff that I can't answer. Honestly, you would be amazed the number of people in history societies, you expect sensible questions and they go, when did covenants start? No, if you look at the building blocks of the witchcraft case, so let's go with somebody, a healer, for example. Somebody falls ill, conventional medicine is either not tried at all or fails. Somebody in their community tells them you must be bewitched, and then they go and consult a white witch. That's exactly what we see in this book. That's exactly what you saw in the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s.
I can tell you a little bit about a question, which is, so with the continuity through to neo-paganism,
yes,
what we tend to find is that the majority of neo-pagan witchcraft religion, as they term themselves in that way, claim longevity from traditional witchcraft practices, but it's virtually impossible to prove an unbroken link between the traditional early practices and the neo-pagan. They will claim it, but it's very, very difficult to actually show a link that runs all the way through. Certainly they're very heavily influenced by the work of Helen and other similar practitioners in that period, but you can't pin it down.
The only similarity, I would say, is in the building blocks that make up each individual cases.
Could you not sacrifice a chicken?
You could. Well, we had gone for dinner last Sunday.
Well, what was the message within it?
It's tasty.
We just said that the name of the witch was gender neutral, but I think a lot of younger people, younger than me especially, would think a witch is a female. When did that transition happen? When did we start thinking of a witch as a female or a male, and not as a gender neutral term?
It must be the Harry Potter film.
That's a very good question. I mean, I'm not sure that there was necessarily a switch from one to the other. I think it was just, it's always been either or. For example, in England, the percentage split is 80-20 in favour of women. In Iceland, it's 80-20 in favour of men, and always has been. So it depends on your geographical location as much as anything else.
Should we battle with book 3?
Go for it.
I'm going to have questions on all books. I'm going to do people, but I was going to talk about the book first. Okay. Years ago, James and I met at university, and we had this idea for a comic fantasy novel, which, if we had written it within a reasonable period of time, say 6 months, Pratchett would have been compared to Steele and Wake at their best. But we wanted to get it right. Years ago, the Black Horse, I remember. I'd tell each other jokes about this fantasy novel, and then the next morning we couldn't remember a thing, could we? So we then went to the pub with a pad of paper and wrote all this down.
Never couldn't read it.
Yeah. And we started to rewrite this thing before we finished it, which is a big mistake. I have learned so much about writing by copying done on this book.
Yeah. This is a learning experience.
It's a learning experience. We started to rewrite the prologue over and over again. And each time it was incrementally slightly better. So we did it again, slightly better. And then I found a much earlier version, and it was so much better. So like it was written and like that. Anyway, in the pandemic, I thought this is a chance to finish this. I think it became a trilogy.
It didn't become a trilogy simply because we planned it that way. It didn't get too big.
And you wanted to be a trilogy. So if I can cast by cast game, would you like to do red person? Martin, basically. And Sam, did you come and do a train spotter for me?
Yeah.
that would be I've got exactly 2 words. I want you to read that as well when it comes to it. Yes. Right, so this is not the prologue. I think it was the prologue originally. Originally this was called the prologue, but it's not actually the prologue. No. So anybody who's familiar with Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey will know that this chapter is called The Call to Adventure. And it is a comic fantasy novel set in ancient medieval times. Well, in this bit, shush. Go back a bit. With a snap, the letterbox shut on the fingers of the postman. Ah, stupid! And envelope fell onto the growing pile of flyers, bills, circulars, final demands that littered the welcome mat. Martin's head jerked up at the sound. It wouldn't be a royalty check. It had been a long time since his book, Maybury's Unfinished World, had failed to earn out its meagre advance. Worse still, it was out of print, and his publisher, Spade's Academic Press, wouldn't release the copyright, so he couldn't even self-publish it. Martin switched on the kettle. He needed caffeine to think straight. This morning, for instance, he had completely failed to react to his mail being on fire. He found his smiling mug and added 2 heaped spoonfuls of instant. The kettle was not boiling. After a while, he remembered to switch the plug on at the wall. In the bread bin, he found 2 slices of economy white and popped them into the toaster. He took the first sip of coffee. Vague warning lights flickered in his mind. Something smelt wrong. Something was on fire. He shook his head. Another 5 seconds before... Fire! Martin lunged at the toaster's off button. With almost impressive skill, he caught the bread in mid-air. And due to a long ingrained reflex, he immediately dropped it onto the floor. His fingers weren't burnt. The bread wasn't even warm. Covered in crud, yes, but not warm. The toaster was still turned off at the wall. Martin looked about in panic. On and off, wings off, microwave broken, toaster on again. Toaster for the 3rd time, what else? Faint wisp of smoke drifted in from the hall. Curiouser, Martin followed the drifting trail to the front door. His mail was on fire. His mail was on fire. His mail was on fire! He stamped desperately, trying to extinguish the weird blue flames. As his feet struck, clouds of grey ash rose from the carpet to envelope him. He retreated to the kitchen for some coffee and spotted. It was like the bush before Moses, got in reverse. Smoke of destruction but no fire. He went back slowly through the settling fallout to see the crisp remains of competition, book club circles, home delivery pizza leaflets, credit offers, letters from evangelists promising a new life, home insurance schemes, a few dozen not to be missed, desperate opportunities, but most of the sorted ash could have been anything. A single unscathed letter picked out from under the charred remains. Something had destroyed all his junk mail. Also, his fire alarm went He went over to the heap and cautiously tugged the envelope out by its corner. It was bronze coloured, longer and thinner than a normal envelope, and addressed to Martin Ravenhead, Esquire. Why had it survived? Martin ripped it open to reveal an oversized index card, slightly yellowed with age. A typewriter had smashed some letters into it. It looked like one of... He held it at arm's length, squinting.
The call to adventure. It begins when Martin...
No, surely not. He needed his glasses. Where had he put them? The whole phone rang, shrill and loud. Yes?
Mr. Ravenhead,
The man's voice was reedy and nasal, like a comedian doing a train
Speaking? Speaking?
I wish to talk to you about Donald Maybury.
Oh, God. Another one of the bloody Dragon Sword Society.
What about Donald Maybury?
I represent certain parties who would be interested in putting an offer to yourself in the strictest confidence,
Offer?
with suitable recompense.
The offer would be a talk, and if he was lucky, suitable recompense might even stretch to a meal and a return train ticket. If he was lucky. It had been years since anybody had sprung for a hotel room overnight.
I see.
Shall I send you the details?
Yeah, that would be best.
For your consideration?
Of course.
In that case, Mr. Ravenhead Street, I bid you good day.
Good day.
Martin had forgotten the man's name. He could have written it down on the index card that he still held in his hand, if he'd remembered to ask, if he'd had a pen. He took the phone back to the base unit on the hall shelf, and there, by a pen, lay his glasses. He put them on and read the card.
The call to adventure. It begins when Martin Ravenhead receives a telephone call from the solicitor of the Maybury family with an offer.
Was it April already? It had been 16 years since Maybury's first fantasy book. Martin, like everyone else, had been drawn into the world of Heronmark with its kings and wizards. So many had been enthralled by the heroic tale of Milo and his band of heroes fighting the evil Baron Yarkut. And Princess Edith, of course, and well, all of it. But his interest had turned into obsession when the sequel had been published a year later. And then Arthur's mysterious disappearance. His absence left behind too many questions and too few books. Martin even written about it in his Maybury's Unfinished World. Martin shook his head and chucked the index card into the paper recycling.
It begins indeed. It begins in darkness. They said, who sent?
With a snap, Lord Junk Mail. I need Dawn and Tracy. Dawn and Tracy, do you want to do green?
Okay. Yep.
Then you get one line.
I get one line.
Do you want to do that bit? Okay. Prologue.
Possibly the actual.
Yes, it's just
16 years previously. It begins. It begins in dark, they said. But who was there? The distant baying of wolves, the stink of ungulates, and the smoke from burning hen flageolet filled the gloom. A soft, damp dripped from the cabin. Only the red glow of charcoal served to ease the darkness. A cauldron bubbled as the crone continued her stirring. Behind her, a young novice priestess looks on in rapt concentration as she hands forward bunches of rank smelling weeds. Baron Yarkut, still wrapped in his long black cloak, looked on impassively as the old woman cast the herbs into the dread pot. He awaited the oracle's blessing. The crow's bony hands moved to and fro as she chanted her solemn hymn of the black art. Ropes of white mist writhed from the pot, suffusing the air with a bitter perfume. The crone leaned over the cauldron and took a deep breath.
The patterns. Oh wow, the patterns. I can see Thursday.
A resigned sigh came from behind the collapsed figure.
Maybe you'd prefer your palm bread.
So that's the prologue, which we overly read, rewrote and rewrote.
No, no,
And then threw it away and got the old version.
no, the first one was the one we wrote and rewrote, wasn't it?
No, we rewrote.
We wrote
Word,
we
word,
wrote
word,
scholars. Who have we got here?
We have a small encore we can do, but I thought I'd open to questions about that debacle. Why?
We got
seemed
carried
like a good idea
away.
at the time.
One of the things was, when we started, we sort of, the process was really quite odd in that we sort of had a sort of a scene, or say something sprang to mind, some sort of scene somewhere along the route. And we got written down, somebody wrote it down, we got passed from one person to another, back and forth, until it became a section. And then after a while we had 10, 12 completely unrelated sections. It didn't seem to match up at all, but seemed to tell a story. We sort of tried to, at that point, it was trying to trying to figure out exactly what was happening with the story, and getting it to a point where it actually made sense in terms of the narrative we were trying to tell. What happened next is that Dave got interested in the Joseph Campbell stuff.
Well, we both did.
Yeah, we both did. You got obsessed. I got interested.
Like David, it's
Probably
easier.
true, yeah.
Well, what happened was that basically we started to try and put it together in terms of where might this fit within the hero's journey, and who is trying to fit it in the hero's journey. And we developed a character, the sort of framing device of Martin Ravenhead, but except it then became his story.
Yeah, he was originally a running gag
Yes.
of a character from our world who's trying to get into the fantasy story and never manages it. And it's just a running gag. But that became very interesting to us in a way that we can talk about the hero's journey, which is, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is what George Lucas used to write Star Wars. That's why it's famous.
That's why people make money out of retelling its time and time
Yes,
again.
it is, yes.
So, yeah. And we had a load of things. Some of them were independent, sort of jokes that we thought were really interesting or good or worked reasonably well. Some of which were parodies of other works, so little bits that were sort of related to Monty Python stuff, related to related to Lord of the Rings, related to.
When we were at university, I used to go to the Film Society. We used to have a week of fantasy films. So that was very productive as a week. There's a lot of Excalibur jokes in there, which I saw.
Excalibur. There were jokes about a really old film called Crow. If anybody remembers that, I'm very sorry for you. I have brought it back to your mind.
I thought I killed those neurons years ago.
So it came about through that, but gradually it actually turned into, weirdly, over a long period of time, it turned into an actual book.
Yes, it turned into a single book,
Which was too big.
No, it wasn't too big. It was very centre the side, I remember. It was printed out on a dominatrix printer, that really dated. And then we read books on how to write. We got a big.
Almost answered my question. I was going to say, as a process of writing a book, how would you rate how this book came together? 1 to 5 stars. If you were to try it now, how would you do it differently?
In the time that it has taken us to write this one book, I have written and published 14.
This one might be better than that, unfortunately. I mean, I
Fuck
probably
it,
is.
it's quite damning. No, I mean, the thing in the pandemic was, we had this thing, and it was written in lots of different voices. My voice when I was at university, my voice later on, your voice at university, your voice later on. When we wrote together, when I rewrote things in words with longhand, typed them up, it was just, we needed a consistency. That's really what we had in our lives. So we just pretend that it was written by one person.
Let's try, yes, but getting consistency. Actually developing the story itself, because the story itself is not what we have really represented here, other than these little sections. The story within the book actually works reasonably well.
Well, it does follow the hero's journey.
It does follow the hero's journey, at least in this.
Yeah, I just wonder, obviously it's a collaboration between you two. So did you like edit each other, or how did that work?
James would walk about in my bedroom at university dictating ideas, and I would type something else down. He would send me things in the post, and he would finish university. But there was, yeah, the two things, really, the two main lessons to learn on how to write on this. One is, don't spend 42 years on it. You write the first draft in one go, don't go back and rewrite. The second is, have some sort of a plot worked out. Rather than, because our two ideas of what the plot would veered away from each other when we left university, I think.
There was a massive version that I wrote at one point that you have thrown away. It was probably twice as long as the entire trilogy. At least.
I did some abridgment.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing from this conversation that the only thing that you actually contributed was your name on the cover.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
It's the way you're making it sound.
No, that's very untrue. This is a collaborative work. Without question, it wouldn't have existed if we hadn't sort of got the idea in the pub, wherever it was.
I'm guessing a lot of alcohol was involved in the creation.
A certain amount. The other thing was that I did write an awful lot of the sections. I did write, and I can still recognise. Yeah, I did that one. I did this one. I did that one. There are a lot of the individual parts of it which were written at the time and also as bridging pieces and other little bits and pieces. I remember there was one trouble we had. We had terrible trouble in the first book getting everybody out of the pub. There's a scene with a tavern, and we managed to get everybody in there. And this is about the first time basically all the characters meet. And we couldn't get them out of the pub. We could do it every time. There was another bit that was in huge.
We couldn't work out any motivation as to why anybody
I think it's only 2 chapters now.
It's only 2 chapters, because I'm not honest. I'm going to tell a story of the gravel shop.
Oh, yes.
I was rewriting stuff, and this weapon turned up called the gravel shop. James is something of a nut on medieval history and so forth. So I thought, oh right, this is a medieval weapon, portable. And I carried on writing it. And I wanted this particular assassin to have a more evil version of the gravel shop. So I went, I don't know what it is. Fire! I'll make it a non-spiked version. Sent this version to James. He didn't seem to pull up on it. So another bit comes back and someone's got a many-spiked version with poison on it. That's my version of that story. Your version is different.
I made the name of it.
No. You told me. You thought I said
It obviously must have been me because you thought it was a medieval weapon that I made up.
One day you told me exactly that story, but the other way around. That you had read the Bible.
And
saying, oh, it must be real, and carried on.
So I thought, yes, my idea of it, I never questioned the idea of it. I thought, okay, I have no idea what this is. I should treat it as a medieval armourer's version of a Swiss Army knife. It can do it it can stab, it can beat, it can dust, it can poison, it can do anything you don't really like. They can be hidden underneath a cloak, but these ain't fat 7 feet long. It can be whatever it happens to need to be at the time.
So there's that. I don't know what question I would answer.
There's one over there.
Oh,
So, I was going to ask, so were you both on the same course at university?
no. I didn't.
Were you, because I can't remember, I'm sorry David, I can't remember, were you doing literature at university?
No.
What were you doing at university when you were, what were you supposed to be doing at university?
I can answer this one. I was supposed to be going to lecture.
What?
Oh, I see. I initially started doing civil engineering, but I gave that up in 4 weeks and did software engineering. And you did?
I did mathematics at university and actually got a degree at it. But more particularly, I did an awful lot of role-playing games at university and therefore got a considerably lesser degree than I would have otherwise got. In addition, I studied history at university, but not actually as a course. I went into the library every so often, and partly as a result of role-playing games, because God knows you can plagiarize so much. But oh, sorry.
Yeah. Because 42 years is a long time.
Yes.
83. Is my math
Well,
right?
I worked in Alice 43 years,
Yeah.
and I thought 42 is funny.
Yeah.
And it must be said less embarrassing.
I'm just curious about, because in a sense, assuming you weren't literally continuously writing those years, there's an episode at the start where you were writing with not making for instance at university.
Yeah.
And then there's the episode of like the last 5 years, post-COVID, when you started to do it and sort it out.
Yeah.
Then you use Google Docs or whatever. Were there various episodic attempts through the years to get it? What's the story of the 42 years?
It's probably as close as anybody has ever described to us as how it actually was. We had the university episode, then we sort of tailed off a bit. Then we had another episode when we sort of put together a sort of first draft of it, as it were. And a coherent idea of the 3 books, which is nothing like the 3 books we ended up with in the end. And then that got put aside for a while. Then I had a massive long rewriting thing where I wrote something that was twice as long as it now exists, which David then basically trashed. And then David then went around and salvaged bits from all the previous attempts, put them together in a relatively coherent narrative. And then I've been editing and putting things into a particular single voice for the past 3 years.
Well, when was it behind that?
5 years.
Yeah. So 3 or 4 years I've been then going through and putting it all into a single voice. The 3rd book isn't quite finished. The 3rd book, we have everything, but I'm still putting together those little bits and pieces.
You have the sequel to this as well. You have this one and then the sequel.
We've got this one, and then there's a sequel, and then there's a sequel.
Yes.
Do you want to tell them the titles?
You came up with the titles.
Yeah. This one
will alternate.
This one is called A Dragon in the Title. There's also a dragon in the cover, which is nice. The idea of it was Roger Payton many years ago said that a dragon in the title, or he may have said on the cover, is worth 1,000 copies.
That's an extra 10% of sales.
Yes, an extra 10% of sales. Yes.
Book 2 is called The Sword and the Sequel. And book 3?
And book 3 is called The Return of the Trilogy.
And you came up with those titles. Yes. Then it had to be a trilogy.
Yes, and it had to be a trilogy. Well, they didn't fit quite well as 2 books.
Should we do our... Oh, God, Richard.
Yeah, about 20 years ago when I heard you giving a reading, at that point it was in the fancy world and you'd written it in iambic pentameter.
Oh, that's still in there.
That's
There are vast sections. The main villain of the piece, Baron Yalbert, who has been mentioned here, speaks almost entirely in an iambic pentameter throughout. I think there's one instance when he gets interrupted halfway through a line and then completes it in iambic pentameter. But other than that, it should be pretty much iambic pentameter throughout. And if it's not iambic pentameter, then it's rough pentameter.
We've got an encore bit to read. I don't know which bit you want to do. Do you want to do Milo? Green.
Milo was green, yeah.
Can we get Sam to do the narrator?
Sam to do the narrator, because there's only a tiny bit at the beginning of the narrator.
Not the liking of it, but I'll be sitting there. I'm not doing sitting detention. Stand up.
No, stand up. Your voice carries further. I think the back can't hear.
Oh, there.
Well, maybe they can hear. Maybe they don't want to hear.
What's that?
Milo watched as the old man crept forward, slowly and methodically tapping left and right with his mystically decorated staff, until he reached a log at the center of the clearing. After a while, the old man called out in a distant and cracked voice.
I believe I am in the presence of a great warrior. Come, sit with me, make up the fire. You and I have much to talk about and little time. Tell me of your great quest.
Well, are you hurt?
Get away from me! Don't creep up on people like that. It's dangerous to creep up on old people without warning. No one taught you no manners. I could have had a heart attack. For who was it who taught you such manners? I would give them such a hit.
But you said to come and sit with you.
What?
And tell you about my great quest.
What? I don't want to know about your quest. Enough with quests. I was rehearsing. Don't you recognise rehearsing? What kind of boy are you, scaring an old man like that? I could have dropped down dead, here, on the spot. And then where would you be, huh? Well, sorry? Anyway, you've got to go. I'm following someone important. You might scare away. As if I'm going to find them here. He's long gone. Those damned harpies of that oracle. They come to me, they tell me, yeah, I should seek out a great warrior named Milo. Do I look like I need a quest at my time of life? What do they care? These they promised it would be the last quest they'd sent me on. But who am I kidding? I'll be back just when I'm settled again. So I should believe priestesses after they told me that source. My sense of smell still hasn't come back. Wasn't enough that I can't see. Now I can't smell. You know this. How am I supposed to find my way about with a block nose?
Did you say you were searching for a Milo?
Yes, Milo. Wait a moment. You don't mean to say your name wouldn't be Milo, would it? Oh, yes. Please say yes.
Oh, well, yes. How did you know? Magic?
It was triumph of hope over experience. Wait, you don't sound so great. They said about how this Milo was a magnificent warrior. How can I be sure that you're for real?
Do you want to have to stay here and wait for another Milo?
Fair enough.
Generalised question. Where are we? Oh, we've run over. Oh, have we?
No, I'm trying to probe that.
Oh, Eddie. Ah, Bill.
In that reading there, I could just hear and see Monty Python overtones. Is that part of?
That was part of the original things. I mean, certain parts of it were a bit Monty Python right at the beginning, but hopefully they've evolved a little away from that. I think there are some bits which are maybe closer, and there are an awful lot of bits which are considerably further away. The humour in various places. I mean, what do you say?
Well, we stand on the shoulders of giants, don't we? I mean, you can do a through line of comedy from, I don't know, well, variety musical, Goons, Monty Python.
I was going to say Aristophanes.
Aristophanes. He was first. To, you know, Not the 9 O'Clock News, alternative comedy, etc., etc. We're all products of that time. So yeah, but there are Python-esque stuff in it, I guess.
Thankfully, we have forgotten nearly everything we ever knew about Monty Python. And it means that when we did the rewrite, it became much more an actually our voice rather than theirs.
I chose that bit because...
Yeah, your reading of it was very much in that inflection. I think that's where it came from.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of them. Well, it's a man or a woman, isn't it?
Yes, it's Terry Jones.
Yes.
Yes, there are some bits which are, yes, interestingly, there are some bits which are descriptions, which seem to be descriptions of physical humour at times, which are not. But altogether, we got it to a point where we thought it actually worked as a book. We worked on the various parts of it and got it to flow as a story. And we tried and developed things like characterization. We looked at the books and thought, okay, the first book, we looked at it and thought of it in terms of the hero's journey. Various parts of the hero's journey, building up and going through. The hero's journey is not quite finished, of course, by the end of the first book. The second book, you wanted to concentrate very much more on characterization.
Oh, I have
No, but I looked at it in that term. So in the second book, it seemed to get an awful lot more of actually going into some of the motivations and some of the way the characters have come to be this way, who they really are, how they think and everything like that. And the third book.
No, I haven't seen it for ages. The third book's more about theme.
The third book is very, very much more about theme, but also about how things can get derailed. So things like, one of the points was that in the third book, there is the search for...
I'm going to say spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell them the first book.
Okay. Let's not say about anything about the third book, but the third book does get more interesting in terms of some of the way the themes work out.
So it's an ongoing thesis, that sounds really pretentious, rather than a retelling of the first story. So you get a new hope in this book. Then you get Empire Strikes Back. In the third book, you don't get a new hope redone as Return of the Jedi.
You get, yes.
Also get Phantom Menace.
Oh dear God! Oh no!
Force Awakens.
Let's steer clear of these knowledges.
Yes. It's like Kroll is the first book. Second book. If they made Kroll 2 and it's good, that would be second book.
And now we know why David can't sell books.
I have a question. If people want to purchase these books, would you recommend they approach the table at the end of the panel?
Yes, yeah, let's end the poll now. Yes. I'm sorry you sell your books.
Yes.
Otherwise, you brought some.
Otherwise, yes. Otherwise, it's silly to have bought them.
I have bad insight.
I should say that the Crow's Law is a limited edition for Armadacon on 25, and the Dragon of the Title is a limited edition of 50.
Yes.
And I numbered them.
Yes.
Mine is not a limited edition. You can buy as many as you like.
Yes. Although yes, technically it's limited here because then you can buy it from.
You can't buy it anywhere else.
Not at the moment.
No. I've got to click a button and it will be on sale. But this is the launch.
Yeah.
And I think
At this time, it's not available in bookshops.
I desperately wanted to finish this book because for 14 years it's still. I want James to be a proper publisher.
And you also wanted not to die before.
Dawn had this theory, did you not?
I did.
Right, go on, do you want to tell us the theory?
They spent so long writing it. I thought James particularly, because she always seemed to then rewrite it and add more bits. You know, like in some fairy stories, if if the work is ever completed, if the bridge is ever finished and the house is built and the person dies, I thought James assumed if he ever actually finished the book, then mystically he would suddenly drop down dead.
There was yes, which is the Tolkien short story? That's the one. Yes, Leave My Neighbour, where finishes it, but at the end it is all completely.
Well, what about tomorrow? There's an ambulance outside.
Don't worry, it's not quite finished.
You've got to listen.
The first book's out. The second book's finished and ready once Dave's had a final go at it.
Yes.
And the third book is still being. I am putting things properly into a single author voice.
So only then will prophecy be.
Only then.
No, it's not a prophecy. It's not.
Are you prophesying this prophecy?
I think it was Dawn's prophecy.
Yeah, I thought Dawn was.
Yeah.
Can we expect the third book to be finished in less than 42 years?
Yes. The third book is in the process of being finished and should be finished before the second book comes out, I would hope.
Yes. I mean, I guess the plan is to do the second book for EasterCon and the third book here. That would be my plan. And that's well doable, I think.
Maybe James needs to come back again next year.
Yes, it's a possibility. Good. Yeah, I know there's somebody at the back who's actually.
That's the audience.
The manacles to the desk are merely a courtesy art.
Oh, yeah.
A question for Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
You know you was researching the book in the archive.
Yeah.
Obviously, was there any story that really surprised you that you didn't expect?
The one that surprised me the most was actually a murder. It's not a particularly witchy murder, but it surprised me because it really typifies the way that the signposting that the papers did at that point in time. That was the mid-1860s. And the newspapers at that time were basically signposting to the public that anybody involved in a case which included witchcraft was ridiculous, superstitious, probably poorly educated, and fit for laughing at. So in this particular case, both actually there's another one which is worse thinking about it. And that is the case of a healer. And in that one, both the woman, the healer, and the man who is bringing charges against her are essentially slagged off completely by the magistrates, by the defence attorney, by the newspapers, and newspapers up and down the country as well. And the guy had gone to this woman in the first place to get a cure for his wife, who was partially paralysed. And after the case was concluded, there was an editorial piece written by, I think it was the York Herald, and it even laid into the ill wife. Nobody was safe, and all the way through you would get something like gross superstition in Plymouth, and then you would have some sort of sentence which started, a case displaying the most appalling superstition came before magistrates at Plymouth Guildhall yesterday. They all have this kind of breathless expostulation of horror at the level of belief, at grassroots level, which was still right throughout the county. So,
I think arguably the most surprising one was the one that was positive.
Actually,
Because
yes,
there
that's
was
a
only
good one.
one.
There was one. We must have looked at, oh God, a lot of hundreds of newspaper reports. And most, well, pretty much all of them were, you know, laugh at these people, we're going to give you a little bit of transcript from the court, and we're going to make sure we note whenever somebody laughs at the people that are giving the evidence. And there was one in all of the things that we found, which was talking about a woman who was a healer and white witch, who lived in a very neatly kept cottage, whose person was very neat, who was a lovely person. The only one in all of the reports we looked at that was anywhere near positive. The only one. So yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So that was
Did you come across any cases where people were prosecuted for witchcraft, as in that being a crime?
No, because by that time, witchcraft was an impossible act. So after they changed the Witchcraft Act, I think it was the Vagrants Act at one point, but basically it's, as soon as they decided that witchcraft was an impossible crime, it was, you would be charged with pretending to be a witch, pretending to be a witch. And essentially, essentially you were charged as a fraudster and a con man.
Yeah. Any more questions? I should say thank you very much to my fellow panelists, Tracy, James, myself. Thank you all.